We'll continue with the code for the dish list. The dish list form is the form that contains the set of dishes we can select from. The elements within this form are stored in a grid layout. You will notice that the number of rows is hard-coded. That is because rows are added implicitly as we add more elements, but columns won't change by default. This means that if we only have one or two elements, the rest of the places will remain blank, and the one element we have won't take up all the space. The floating action button at the bottom allows us to add a new dish to the set of existing dishes. Notice that we instantly add a dish and show the edit UI forcing the user to delete the dish if you want to cancel this addition. That's a common practice on mobile where dealing with the OK cancel process is sometimes harder than just doing something like this. The add dish method adds a UI element to the list of dishes. That element includes a black gradient overlay which makes the white text on top readable even with a white image below. The entire component is a lead component, which means all events within the container are delegated to the scale image button. That means that the listener on the scale image button in the last line will receive all of the events in the container hierarchy. We show the dish edit form when editing a dish. Since a dish is instantly created and edited, there is no form for a new dish, and this form doesn't have two modes like you normally would, or for edit or create. In this app there is only one mode, edit. The title area of dish edit form is built of components. Because it is large and relatively custom, I prefer to handle all of the commands and functionality in code. So the title itself is a text field again, just like in the main form, as the dish title can be edited in place. The back and OK buttons are just standard buttons with the right UI ID and icon. This is where it gets interesting. The title component is now really tall because of the background image. So if I had used a standard add material command, it would have been placed somewhere along the middle of the layout instead of at the top. So to get around this, I created a border layout which effectively occupies this area. But again, if I'd add the components directly, they will be placed in the middle vertically instead of at the top as I would like. So I wrap the two commands with a flow layout to push them to the top. I wrap the text field with a box layout though, and the reason is a bit more complicated. Flow layout doesn't deal well with resizable components like text fields, since it tries to break a line when we run out of space. If the title is too long, it will try to break a line instead of letting the text field overflow, which is what I want. Box layout doesn't have that problem. This code right here positions the floating action button on the border between the title area and the body. Notice that this component is positioned on top of both and doesn't require a special empty region like the icon in the previous form. We bind the floating action button directly to the layered layout on the top right, which should position it really high in the form. But we then use this code to set the margin of the floating action button so it will match the toolbar height minus half the height of the floating button. This positions it perfectly. Last but not least, we can see the component representing the delete button at the bottom, followed by stub action handling code for the various buttons. Delete is placed in the south, so it will always appear at the very bottom of the form, regardless of scrolling. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this informative.